Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Breakthrough Conversations. My name is Brett English.
My name is Ryan Ortega.
And we've got Stuart Watkins in the house with us. And thank you so much for coming down, brother.
Yeah,
Welcome.
blessing.
Thank you for having me.
Blessing.
Can I jump right into it?
Let's do it.
Ask you about how did you go with your transitioning phase to what you're doing now? Like, were you always in the sort of the spiritual community or doing yoga classes and thinking outside the box?
Right.
Did you sort of start in a more mainstream fashion and slowly get
Yeah, I
into it?
did. It happened both spontaneously, yet gradually when I look back, but it felt pretty sudden when I was in it. So I was a personal trainer from a young age. In my mid-teens, I started getting interested in health, mainly because I was observing around me just such lack of health and a lot of obesity in my direct family, and just was starting to observe this isn't for me. And I also in my teens was going down a pretty dark path of a lot of drugs, a lot of partying, and kind of learnt the hard way, but that kicked my ass into, okay, time to get healthy, time to get motivated. So back then, even in my teens, I was doing all that Tony Robbins stuff, which was great and love him. And straight out of high school, got into personal training.
Yeah.
And then gradually through the years of doing that, I was just seeing gaps. I was seeing people getting healthy and fit, but still not fulfilled and happy and radiant. And just gradually I became curious through the life coaching pathways, and then gradually into more meditation, spirituality, and then come age 19 or 20 maybe, I just broke up with a long-term relationship, stopped my job, personal training in Subiaco. I was doing really great, life was great, awesome relationship, awesome work, but I needed to go travel. And being a Perth kid, I wasn't brought up traveling with my folks at all. So I was just yearning for it, craving it. And I just stopped working, packed up my bags, took off on a solo trip around the world, which that's what started to really fiercely change it into something much deeper. And that's what gradually brought yoga into my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So around the world by yourself.
Yeah.
That must have
Backpacking,
been
going
insane.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great time, and it was so good for me. And even just Bali was the first stop. I kept going back to Bali, which we can tend to take for granted coming from Perth. But Bali changed my life, just seeing the locals in their modes of devotion and just could feel the spirituality. The first trip to Bali was meant to be a party trip, but I just became blown away. My breath was taken away by the locals and their connection to spirit and the land, and then from there, through Asia, through Europe, and then ended up in Canada and then California for quite a bit. And it was great.
That's
It
awesome.
was very good for me. I needed to.
Yeah.
So would you say it was some sort of a divine plan where you just ended up in Bali first?
Yeah, I mean, that's the mystery right there. Pretty much the divine plan. I mean, it felt all just in flow, and I mean, it of course it took a little bit of willpower and discernment to quit my job and leave that relationship. I could have just kept going, It was beautiful, life was good, but there was something deeper bubbling up within me. So it's a combination, I think.
Yeah.
A little bit of willpower there and decision making. At the same time, the majority, I think, that deeper flow, that deeper divine plan.
Yeah.
How does one, you think, cultivate that inner wisdom to really grow their spiritual muscle, so to speak, or follow that intuitive guidance system and not get lost in whatever else is going on? Like you said, you can keep the job, you can keep in a relationship, but anything you'd recommend to cultivate that?
I mean, there's so many things, and we're so lucky in today's day and age. We've got like seemingly endless options. And that is a beautiful thing, but it can also be confusing because classically, when people were on like the path, it was like a path. You're doing Zen, or you're doing psychedelics, or you're doing yoga. It's like one path, boom, or religion or something like that. Now we've got this massive smorgasbord of options, which is great, but I find a lot of newer seekers get a bit confused. Like, yeah, what do I do?
Yeah.
Do I do mindfulness? Do I do breath work? Do I do psychedelics? Do I do yoga? And you can do a bit of each. I think that can work.
Yeah, I've tried that.
Yeah, so have I. So have I.
Yeah.
And it can work. Yeah, it does. But possibly finding like a foundational practice to have each day that you return to every day. Because it's a distracting world. It's so distracting, and it's easy to get seduced by just all the noise and social media and all the hype. And so having a practice to just quiet the mind and regulate the nervous system. So whatever you're vibing with, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's meditation, maybe a breathwork exercise, and then from that like foundational exercise, like explore. We got so many options now.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man.
So would you recommend like small daily practices?
Yeah.
Pretty much? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, what's huge is starting off small, because like people can get overwhelmed and like because of that endless options. But like even just upon waking, like sitting on the edge of the bed and just centering with your breathing, like 5 minutes, it's huge. And then maybe bringing that into like a mindful shower, like truly feeling the shower. And then you can truly bring it into anything and everything, how we drink our water, how we step, like, which is ultimately mindfulness. Just like starting off the day attentive and connected, and then we can bring it into anything and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So the key is like, how you start your day is would you say that's a very important factor into how you tune throughout the day? Oh,
sunshine on the face, sunshine through the eyes before 9 a.m. I think that's a non-negotiable to, I mean, with our sunglasses and our sunscreens and our hats and our windows and our cars, and we're getting so disconnected to just the rhythms of the universe. And simple things like that, like start the day with a bit of breath awareness, centering, hydrating the body mindfully, thank you for the body. And then like that pre-9 a.m. blast of sunshine through the eyeballs is crucial to get our circadian rhythm dialed in. And then from there, it just makes it way easier to be present and to make more mindful, accountable decisions. And then just, stopping every hour or two and doing that all again. And it really can just ripple through the whole day.
Oh, wow, beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to talk about Ram Dass and how you became a student of his, or how that whole thing unfolded.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. The seed was initially planted in my first teacher training in India. It would have been 2008 or 2009. Yeah, roundabout. And my teacher was talking about Ram Dass and hadn't heard about him, but I remember just noting, or a seed was planted of just the name Ram Dass, and he was saying, you got to get the book, Be Here Now, and like just dive into it. So I did, because I trusted my teacher. At that time, I didn't quite get it. I was too in my thinking mind and my rational mind, and I was flipping through the book Be Here Now, and it's just so psychedelic and so deep and mystical. And Ram Dass at that time, like, he was deep in his aphasia and his stroke, so he wasn't talking very well. So when I'd look up Ram Dass and watch him, I didn't quite get what everyone was talking about yet, of like Ram Dass, incredible teacher, because he wasn't talking fluently at that time. It was all very slow. And okay, well, what's this all about? But a seed was planted, and then probably a year later, I just became obsessed with him and listening to his lectures online from back in the day when he was referred to as having the golden tongue. He just spoke beautifully because he was a Harvard professor, and then into psychedelics, and then into yoga.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very multi-faceted. Yeah. He was one of the guys that first really brought LSD into the world, him and Timothy Leary. So yeah, that seed was planted, and just became obsessed with him, reading his books, listening to his lectures, and then just because I can be a little bit audacious, I reached out to him and his crew, and like, I need to connect with you, like, you've changed my life, which he truly did.
Was that just by an email or how?
Yeah, and I started doing Skype sessions with him, and then just kept doing them every now and then ended up, because he moved to Maui after his stroke. He couldn't travel anymore, and he set up residence in Maui in Hawaii, and just kept going there to go on retreat with him. And every chance I could, would just spend all my money to get over to Maui and be with him. And then it got to the point where we were getting there, my family and I were getting there so much that we moved there. We moved to Maui for a couple years, and we're just with him every other day. We're with him a lot. And
wow.
Yeah, it was a great time. Very fortunate, a bit of luck there, again, it's like that divine plan of like, a bit of luck, bit of willpower to just make those decisions and put my money there and put my actions there, and the rest was that divine plan, that divine flow. And it was a beautiful time.
That's beautiful, because I remember hearing some rumors about a guy in Perth who was trained by Ram Dass, and I sort of didn't believe it. I was like, but no, he's sitting right here. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What were some of the teachings that really stuck with you, that really stand out from him?
Well, again, like from his earlier days, all the endless hours of lectures, of diving into them. I mean, there's so many. It's hard to pick one. Yeah. But then in his later years, the kind of final decade before he passed, it was all very deep and simple, of cultivating love. And he had this potent ability to just be in a space of unconditional love. That was it. That was the main thing. And again, he wasn't speaking very much in his later years. When his aphasia was really bad, often a long time would go by in between words. But still, his students would rally around him and just bask in that love. It was no longer about the teachings and the words. It was just, he was embodying this palpable, potent vibration of love. Wow. So that's the main thing. Just
and
that.
You can really just feel that in his presence.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and people would be just opening up in tears, breaking down in tears, in bliss. There'd just be this beautiful vibe of love and bliss.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to one of your classes with Sonny, it was in the city. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was almost 100 people. It was huge. And you said, I'd never seen anything like that on that scale. And I thought, well, because sometimes I go to a big room filled with people who are in the spiritual community, I can get a little bit anxious, or my energy is a bit off. But I walked in and it was just absolutely clear and smooth and beautiful energy. I'm like, whoa, that's a nice change. So,
Yeah,
that's
cool.
crazy.
yeah. How do you work with that energy intentionally? Like, how do you set up a room to hold that kind of space and energy for people?
Yeah, it's a good question. A little bit of it is intentionality and like, we'll get there hours before the event, and part of it is like getting the logistics in place, and we take a lot of musical instruments, and part of it is like getting that all out the way. So then we can because we haven't been in there in months, so it's all like lots of shit goes down in there of like corporate things and meetings, and so there's a kind of almost dusty type energy in there. So we literally clean the space and smudge it with white sage and sprays, and so get that vibe flowing more on a even just cleanliness level, and then a more like aromatic level, and then we get into a good zone. We'll rally, like Cam and I, my brother and I, and the musicians, they'll be like getting into their zone, and Cam and I will just meditate for a good solid, depends on how much time. If we're really on the ball, we'll have a good hour of just like meditating and getting into an awesome zone. So then the rest is like, there's a more harmonious energy to walk into.
Beautiful.
So it's mainly now like, preparing the space, but mainly preparing like my energy, just so it's calm and relaxed and inviting and loving. I try to just remember the vibe Ramdas would embody, and just relaxing, loving, non-judgmental vibe.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Is it possible to tell us about a time that you had the biggest breakthrough, whether it was Bali or with Ram Dass, or something that you were sort of working with within yourself, like a biggest obstacle or the biggest fear, or something that was holding you back from your fullest expression? Does anything come to mind when I ask that question?
Yeah. A few things. Like I grew up being a very nervous, anxious kid. I hated being like wrong, and I hated putting my hand up to ask for questions and being wrong. Just all that was very thick in my mind and my nervous system. And the whole people-pleasing thing. So mainly that, but in terms of like a peak breakthrough, I can't quite pinpoint it to like a moment. It felt like, for me, just like chipping away at these like knots within my conditioned mind that were holding me back. So it's the yoga for me of like working with my anxiety and working with the knots of fear and doubt, and putting breath there and putting movement there and attention. And for me, it was chipping away at it. And then the occasional like peak moment was more a deep insight and remembrance of like true nature or freedom, which then further just allowed all that old conditioned shit to release. Hope you don't mind I'm swearing a little bit.
Fine. Yeah, we swear all the time.
Okay.
Not today.
Yeah.
I think it's very Bristol, but yeah, go for it. The other thing is you were saying that you were sort of meditating or intention or setting your intention on freedom or certain things. Were there certain things you sat down and meditated on or took within your day? You just said freedom there, so you were trying to embody that word.
Yeah. So to speak. The early days, it would be gratitude practices and compassion practices, and like trying to steer the mind into the direction I wanted to. So the gratitude practices really helped me. Later on, it became a little bit more just, the feeling of freedom, which required for me like the occasional taste of like, that freedom beyond thought, that freedom beyond needing anything, that freedom beyond fear and doubt, having the occasional like taste of that. And then having these mindful practices of gratitude, of compassion, helped to steer my attention back to that innate freedom, if that makes sense.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
What gave you those tastes or those insights, just momentarily?
Well, spontaneously, it all began back in back when I was 15, having a drug overdose. Like, to be honest, yeah. Like,
what kind of drug were we talking about? If that's okay to ask.
Yeah, I was deep into raving at 15.
Oh, yeah.
And I was taking, yeah, and
some Molly water.
Yeah, so I was having ecstasy, and I'm quite certain, because a few people had this particular pill that I think it was a bad batch going around that had kind of tranquilizers in it, and I think a bit of heroin in it, and it just smacked the crap out of me. And as far as I'm aware, it was a very near overdose, because it took a long time to recover.
Wow.
So that night was just, I was paralyzed and foaming and blacking out, and it really felt like a near-death experience.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, it was full on. It changed me.
Pretty much just kissed death on the forehead.
Yeah.
Back, right.
So I was like this pale, skinny, gothic-looking skater guy, and then when I recovered from that period, people literally didn't recognize me. I got healthy. I got motivated. Started enjoying school. Everything changed.
Wow.
So that was actually the beginning of it all. That spontaneous moment of kissing death, what really felt like it. But also like the moments leading up to that, as much as I do not recommend teenagers or just the amount of crap I was putting into my body. Like, I'm lucky I didn't die, you know. At the same time, that exploring of consciousness, I'm grateful for that time. Like, it helped me break through a lot of the just kind of boring confines that I had in my mind. And just the combination of the raving and the drugs and the skateboarding, they were great times, as much as I do not recommend it. And having young kids, and that I would not promote. I don't promote it. At the same time, mysteriously, I'm thankful for it. Like it put me on this path.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. I know what you mean. I remember back in the day when there was like Future Music, Stereosonic, all these festivals all the time. I had some bad experience with different pills and stuff like that sent me sideways, or thought I was dying at the end of Stereo 2014, and I haven't touched a drug since then. Yeah. But when you cross that limit, and it's like, whoa, my body's not feeling good, and gone hot and gone cold and hallucinating. Yeah. It's scary, because it's like you feel like you can die any second. You know. Yeah. And it does change you as a person when you realize, oh shit, I'm immortal, I can die, and you're rebirth in a sense.
Totally.
You know? Not by the holiest of ways, but it works out, right?
Yeah, the mystery. Totally.
And how old are you now?
38.
38.
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn, wow. Okay.
You look very young.
Oh, thanks, brother. I'll take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment. Well, what are some things you do to keep your body, keep your body maximized, looking young, looking healthy, just your health? Like what are those practices you've got, including your
I got a lot. I do a lot, but so you want me to run through what I do?
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good water is like key. I really prioritize good water. So I source spring water from Apostles Water. Shout out actually, because I've been getting spring water from them for a long time now. So good water, hydration. We got the coconut water here, which I love. Little morning practices like I talked about before, of getting that sunlight in the eyes before 9 a.m. Really good for our health. Like we need that blast of that sun energy. Grounding practices, so regularly getting my feet on the earth. Regular moments of relaxation. So connection to the breath, to regulate the nervous system and deal with stress. That's key. Doesn't matter. Again, that was one of the insights when I was a personal trainer, is all these people are getting healthy and fit, but they're still stressed out and they're not happy. And I'm seeing a lot of abundance, a lot of wealthy people, but hang on, actually not happy. So that really does help when we've got a bit more mastery of our nervous system and our breathing. Then we've got more mastery of our mind, and we can tune into fulfillment and happiness and joy beyond all the stuff.
Yeah.
So like some kind of breathing exercise really is crucial. And then of course, healthy eating. So I like to have apple cider vinegar and lemon water and lime water first thing in the morning, last thing at the end of the day, as a foundation just to get the gut bacteria cranking, to alkalize the body. And then there's heaps from there. I'm a big fan of like sprouting foods and fermenting foods and getting that real alive food in the body.
Do you do those yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially the sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, broccoli sprouts, every day.
Okay, nice.
Heaps of them, yeah, and sprouting galore. If I'm really on my game, I'll do the fermenting myself, but more often than not these days, I buy the like fermented cabbage and the kimchi and all that. They're good like foundations of getting the gut cranking. Many of us, our guts have just been hammered from dead food and
Pizza.
antibiotics and ibuprofen and all like crappy wheat and that. So I've definitely had periods of being like neurotic about health and taking it too far in like, can't just relax and like go out for a pizza with like I wasn't relatable for a period there. I was like, nope, that's not gluten free and that's not vegan and it's not healthy and I was neurotic. I took it too far.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did. It was a learning curve of like how clean you can live life. But I took it too far and fell into that trap of trying to be too pure.
Yeah.
You know that whole thing? I don't know if you see that a bit around.
I had a phase, but
it
lasted about 6 months and I almost died. Like I needed pizza. Like I think I went fully vegan and like had just the diet was so meticulous and I felt really good. But after a while, after 6 months of being vegan with absolutely no meat, I was getting very lightheaded and I felt very weak within my body and I didn't understand what was going on because I thought it was the right thing to do. But I realized if I could just have certain moments where I do have meat or I do indulge, it does help me to maintain my energy levels or feel a little bit stronger within.
Yeah.
But I haven't really gone back to that since.
Right. Yeah, it's the same for me. Like, it's about balance. So I live a pretty clean, healthy lifestyle, but then, I mean, for a few years there, I gave up alcohol, gave up all caffeine. And for me, that was crucial in, I had these fatigue patterns that kept coming up, chronic fatigue. It really helped me in just clearing out a whole lot of crap and cleansing and renewing. So I'm glad I had that few years of like being quite anal about living a healthy lifestyle. Then integration has been key of like, there's got to be an element of fun and playfulness in it. Part of that for me is food, you know, like celebrating life with a good meal with friends and having a drink. Like I love a good tequila. For me, that's like my alcohol. I could almost say like if it's a good tequila, it's almost a health drink, almost.
It was really good. I do love a really good spiced rum, spiced rum.
Yeah. So, like I don't drink much, but like on a Friday and or a Saturday, my wife and I will connect over a couple tequilas and it's super good for us. And just like, it's mildly altering and sexy and fun. And that's been good for me because I took it too seriously for a while there. So now like, there's that balance of like, taking life sincerely but not too seriously, as Alan Watts was famous for saying.
Yeah.
So got to keep the playfulness, at the same time healthy, so it feels nice and balanced.
With things like your meals, do you do intermittent fasting, or do you do fasting in certain periods? And what is your opinion on eating meat? And if we do eat meat, should it be organic, grass-fed, things of that nature?
Yeah, I'd say. I mean,
I know it's not your scope of field.
Well, I'm passionate about it, and I definitely have had periods of like nutrition was like it. That was like one of the first moments back in PT days of just going a bit deeper into the nutrition piece.
Yeah.
Which since those days, there's been many different like fads and movements, and it's always changing. Yeah. But the paleo and carnivore thing is pretty big right now, which I understand. I haven't done that as a practice yet. I may, who knows? I doubt it. But yeah, good meat. I mean, if it's just mass, factory produced meat that the cows have had a shitty life, fed on grain and full of antibiotics and shit. You don't want to. I mean, not only is it a shit life for that animal, but then we're ingesting that spirit and that all those chemicals and so definitely would lean to a healthy animal if we're eating animals, no doubt. What was the other question?
Fasting and intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting. Big fan, without a doubt. I think we eat generally in our culture, we eat too much every day. And it's fucking with us big time when we are just constantly feeding the body. We've never done that before. And it fogs the mind. One of the main, for so long, fasting, it was a spiritual practice of to purify and quieten the mind. Because once you get on that kind of other side, beyond the hunger, a really beautiful shift can happen where we can cultivate a lot of clarity. Because if we're especially carbs, if we're just constantly getting that yo-yoing of our blood sugar, we're never really full. There's always this kind of unsettled, unsatiated feeling. And the fasting just really helps that insulin balance out, that insulin receptivity, helps the gut replenish, helps the mind. And then we get this phenomenon of autophagy, where if we fasted long enough, we get that awesome cell renewal. So I'm a big fan.
When does that cell renewal come in?
It varies a bit, but apparently for most people it starts to kick in at about that 16 to 18 hour mark.
Okay,
which is why
16 days.
That's one of the reasons that the 16 to 18 hour kind of intermittent time is really popular. Apparently it's because of that kind of time frame of autophagy kicking in around about then. Yeah.
Okay. How long would you usually recommend someone to do a fast if they wanted to fully clear the system?
I mean, you want it to be, I think it depends on the person, you know, if it's someone that's really overweight and they've never done anything radical in changing their eating patterns, it's going to be really tough for them just getting to possibly even just 12 hours or 14 hours. That can be really tough for people. So possibly starting at 12 to 14, getting somewhat comfortable with that. And then you want to nudge it to that 16 hour mark. That give the body a nice gap of not feeding it constantly. But I like to, typically for me, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I push it to about 20 hours. And then I don't do it, because for a while there I was doing it every day and I was starting to feel that it wasn't optimum for me. So I'll do the time restriction, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday typically, And then Thursday, Friday, weekend, I tend to not do it, and maybe just bring in elements of it, and around about 14 to 16. Yeah. That's what feels good for me.
Yeah.
Everybody's different though. Everybody's different. They got to tune into it for themselves and
find out how much they actually need for themselves. Yeah.
And a big part of it for me is like being comfortable in the discomfort, because it's uncomfortable being hungry.
Yeah.
And we're so privileged that as soon as we're hungry, we can just press a button, have something delivered, or go down to the supermarket. And it gets us so fragile, and it's not good for us. I really don't think. We've become so so fragile in that privilege of just having food. And COVID really magnified that for me when there was a lot of potential of food shortages and that. And I was like, holy crap, I'm so not kind of self-sufficient, not in a big way anyway. So fasting for me is a part of unlocking that deeper, like primal sufficiency. It's okay to get hungry. It's actually good for us to get hungry. It makes us more alert and makes us more vibrant, and so I'm a fan.
I feel there was some, I think they were talking about water as well, where if you don't have a certain amount of water with I think it's a liter 1.2 liters, you start experiencing brain fog. So when you said hydration is very important, I was like, okay, cool, hydration. So when you do your fasting, do you always make sure you get the right amount of hydration throughout the day?
Yeah, for sure, no doubt.
Okay, so you would never do a water fast and a food fast at the same time?
So no water, you're saying?
Like a dry
I
fast.
mean, if you're, I think if you've adapted enough and you're confident with it, anything can be done stupidly, you know?
Yeah.
But if you're, like, I wouldn't recommend it if you're new to it and you got a busy day of work and you're driving around and stuff like that. But if you've adapted and you've gotten used to fasting, I'm all for pushing it, you know? We can handle a lot. And if it's done with the right set and setting, it can be incredible. But if it's done stupidly, we can pass out. It can really be destructive for us.
Do you mind if I chat to you about something about God and spirituality?
Sure.
During these fasts or during certain moments in your life, have you ever had an experience that's quite profound in relation to God or spirit and things of that nature?
Yeah.
Very broad question, I know, but...
I mean, for sure. Every day now. That's what the yoga practice is. That's what meditation is getting in touch with spirit, getting in touch with God.
Wow.
And that's, again, one of the, spiritually, religiously, that was one of the main purposes of fasting, is to purify, to sit with the hunger, and what's on the other side? What's on the other side of all that hunger and that compulsive activity of our mind? And all of it for me is to get deeper in touch with spirit, no doubt.
Yeah. And what does that generally feel like or work out for you? I mean, it's different every time. Do you ever get sort of visions or connections, or you sort of feel a presence? Like, I know in different religions they talk about people who fast, like Jesus or St. Paul or whoever, and they had these really amazing moments. Anything like that happened to you where you sort of really visceral, where you're in
totally, So for starters, I have delved deep into psychedelics, and typically, especially ayahuasca and mescaline and magic mushrooms. That's all very visionary, and that can vary depending on the medicine and depending on my mind, depending on what's going on. But had many real visionary experiences with psychedelics, but also just with meditation. Like we've got all the circuitry that those psychedelics, in particular like DMT and stuff like that, we've got all that within us. And pranayama, like the yogic breathing, usage of sound, like mantra and sound healing and meditation, and even yoga postures really can unlock that visionary experience. So yeah, I've had quite a few peak moments of, fractally interconnected, undeniable visions and feelings of oneness, but never like a anthropomorphic kind of thing of the classic God in the sky looking down at us. No, I grew up as a Jewish kid that actually hated it. I hated going to shul, and I just felt as a kid, I just felt grumpy adults around telling me what to do, and I rebelled against it. So I definitely have a bit of, not really a chip on my shoulder, but that dogmatic anthropomorphizing of God, I don't really vibe with. At the same time, I get it. I just don't vibe with it.
So that label's been a bit tarnished, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. So for me, God is love.
Yeah.
God is that interconnected love energy. Yeah.
Beautiful. And just through meditation or intention, you can really channel that and embody that. Same as Ram
Yeah,
does.
that's what it's about.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, in terms of like your connection with yoga, what is the biggest lesson that you have ever learned in terms of the connection of your mind and your body while you're doing yoga?
Biggest lesson. Oh, it's a big one. The biggest lesson. Big gap, big pause. You know what? I think one of the biggest lessons has been that we're lucky to be in these bodies. Like that's a gift. I think that has been one of the biggest lessons through the yoga practice of working with the body and working with the breath, having a real immediate experience of like, I am not the body. I've been given this body. Let's have an awesome time in it. Let's make the most of it. At the same time, I'm not the body. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, that's huge. It's been so huge for me in working with, like, insecurities and working with anxieties and doubt, of having that real insight of, like, I am not my body. So anytime I'm feeling like someone's judging me or observing, that becomes no big deal. That's their own shit. And if I'm judging someone else, that's my shit that I should be willing to work with. So that insight of I'm not the body, I'm not my thoughts. Biggest one, no doubt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like the realization that is of the human experience and the spiritual experience.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. How long? At what point did you truly begin to connect with yoga? Because at least for me, when I first started yoga, it was just more of like a practice that I know that I should do, and when the benefits that I got out of it was more that if I was really tight somewhere, I'd be like, okay, cool, this has really helped.
Yeah.
But at what point, did you have that experience where you're like, holy shit, there's so much more to this than just the physical when you're doing yoga?
Yeah, there was a real beautiful moment in a class in Canada. So I'd been doing yoga a couple years, and similar to what you were just saying, it was something I would just do. I was doing it. I felt tight. I felt fatigued. It was good, but hadn't really had a mystical experience with it or a meditative experience or anything like that. And then this one particular class, I was in Canada, and this beautiful teacher, Angela Jarvis-Reed, was teaching, and she was just saying the right words. It was the right cadence. It was a great vibe, and it just felt so good. And then come Shavasana, just laying down at the end, it was beautiful, and it was a peak experience that I'll never forget, of like dissolving into nothing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't sleep, because that's forgettable, even though sleep is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's different to a meditative experience. So that Shavasana, that's what changed the trajectory of yoga for sure, and became obsessed with it more in the spiritual aspect, because I had that taste in that Shavasana.
Yeah, and you wanted to share it with other people as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How was your first actual class, jumping from being a student to a teacher?
Right. Well, I was kind of used to it with the personal training.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I was training clients one-on-one. I was teaching group classes. I was used to that. So it wasn't too big of a leap, actually. Yeah, which I'm grateful for that, because it can be really challenging if people have gone from not doing any of that and no public speaking to all of a sudden being in front teaching a class. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Can I pivot a little bit as well
sure.
for this one? Being a critical thinker yourself and having so much experience out in the world and traveling, what do you think is really happening at times like now with the talk of wars and the COVID situation and just everything in the collective? What do you think is really happening behind all of that, and how do we sort of navigate through all that incoming propaganda, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a lot, huh? It's a lot, and I don't really have an answer, and I'm not going to pretend I do, but as Ram Dass would say, all we can really do is work on ourselves. Really. We could be up in arms and being an incredible activist, but if we are unregulated within our nervous system and we're just an angry, righteous mess, that activism isn't doing shit. It's not doing anything. It's just projecting more anger and paranoia out into the world. So kind of like we're advised on an airplane, like before helping out others, you got to put on your own gas mask.
Yeah.
It feels like a similar analogy for life. Before we can do too much to help the world, we've got to, or as Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. We got to be it. Otherwise, the world's not going to change into the direction we want. If we're still angry in a way that we haven't brought conscious, anger's fine. Anger's natural. Let's not pretend that I'm angry about a lot of shit. But that's part of why I do these practices each day, so I can work with the anger. So I'm not an angry dad, and so I'm not a angry just mess out in the world. Work with our anger, work with our neuroses, be the change we want to see in the world. I think that's why we do these practices. That's why we do healing. That's why I do it all. And then maybe from there, I keep referencing great teachers because I'm so lucky I've had great teachers. But in a similar regard, Jack Cornfield talks about the world being kind of like a garden, and work with the part of the garden you can touch. So some people feel that compulsion to be an activist and really get out there in the world and make change. If you're doing that, do some practices, get yourself all vibing. Don't go out there an angry mess if possible, otherwise you're just doing more of the nonsense. Some people, it's just trying to be a conscious parent, trying to raise beautiful kids, which I feel is potentially part of it. For some people, it's like we're investing in this eco village down in Witchcliff, Margaret River Way, beautiful. And for that feels part of a new vision, community. So community is huge, creating and putting energy into beautiful community, great conversations. I think we got to watch ourselves with social media, because that's a rabbit hole that can just screw with our perception of life. Like, as we look around right now, life's pretty good. So, tend to the part of the garden we can touch. Like, are we just on our phones freaking about this, that, and the other? It's understandable, and it's seductive. It's so strong. So that's a part of it, like managing our use with social media. Because if we are just eating potato chips and just on the phone freaking out about all the shit going on, we're not really much good. We're just creating this kind of cesspool of stress and paranoia and hate. And no wonder there are these just massive echo chambers of hate within the social media platform. So managing that, be the change we want to see in the world, and then do what we can, do what we can. And whatever that inspiration is flowing. And if we have taken care of ourselves first, we'll be more receptive to what can I do in the world to help,
True.
Yeah.
Another part to that question, if I can jump in here again. If somebody's sort of getting into the spiritual journey, yoga, meditation, the whole health thing, and they're finding they want to go to the next level, take that jump, or whether they're teaching or whether they're stepping out into their full purpose, whatever that means for them, but they always find that their beliefs around money, or if they can make it, or that sort of thing, or they find that living a double life where you're working in the corporate world, but you're also living this, and they don't really come across.
Yeah.
How does one begin to be able to make that jump to really break out of that mold and completely change?
Yeah.
Be fully in it. Or did you experience something similar in your life where you had to make that jump?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, when I first started teaching yoga, I wasn't making much money at all. And actually, I was in a state of mind, and I was quite peaceful with that. I was okay with that, just because of the choices I'd made, and I was doing just so much yoga that I actually felt pretty okay with that, which I'm grateful for, because before that I was very anxious about money, and I just relaxed into this kind of freedom around money, which felt nice. But it can be tough. It can be. I meet a lot of teachers where they've made that leap. They've left their corporate job, or they've left their 9-to-5 job where they've had a predictable wage. They know what's coming in each week, and then all of a sudden, you don't know. Like, it's day to day in a way.
Yeah.
And that can be scary. That can be really challenging. For me, on a personal level, like, I didn't really have that predictable income, so I can't quite put my feet into those shoes. I've always it's just been day to day, week to week, since personal training days, and then into yoga. It's been like, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to get the money. It's just this exchange of energy. I think that can help people. That exchange of energy, looking at money as this currency of energetic exchange, can help. What could also help, so a lot of people, when they're on the path and they're starting to feel more connected to spirit, feel that compulsion to leave their job and just focus on the path, which is cool, but I do invite the potential of playing with keeping the old job and bringing the path into that job. And Ram Dass talked a lot about this as well, actually, which he planted a lot of seeds of what I talk with a lot of students and clients that are sick of their job. I just encourage, okay, before you leave the job, can you just play with the potential of bringing the yoga into that job? Maybe not on the sticky mat and the meditation cushion, but doing your practices while you're at the computer or while you're having that board meeting, because that could potentially be part of the solution of like bringing love and bringing compassion and bringing wisdom into the mining industry. Rather than us just doing it over here, maybe people can do their thing and bring it into their job. Because we can't all be meditation teachers and plant medicine facilitators and yoga teachers. Maybe we can, but some people need to keep their day job. And that's just a recommendation to play with. Otherwise, if you're just giving it all up and taking the full leap, you got to own it. You got to just go for it. Daily practices are crucial because again and again, if we're living in this world where we got bills to pay and responsibilities, it can be challenging. It can be challenging. And that's where the Tantra comes into it for me, of really integrating into daily life and quote unquote ordinary life. Because classically, the path was you give it all up. You go to the monastery, you go to the ashram, you go to the teepee, you go to the mountains or whatever. Shave your head and just give it all up. And there's, in that model, that monastic model, you give up all responsibilities and you just focus on God, you just focus on spirit. Whereas if you're diving into this role, maybe as a teacher or facilitator or healer or something like that, it's a real balancing act of like working skillfully with money and working skillfully with time, and then balancing that with going deeper and deeper into spirit. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's a real practice.
Did you have a mentor or someone to help you, guide you in the money-making sphere of business around spirituality, or was it all just sort of?
No, not really. I mean, my wife Jo is really good with it, just naturally. When she has a vision, it's often a real true vision, and she just does it, and it's bang on. And
do you guys work together in the
yeah,
business
we
sphere?
do.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
a lot.
Awesome. And how did being a parent change your perception on that team and also money and business and the whole world in general?
It changed everything. So before becoming a parent, I didn't think about money at all. And I didn't really need to that much. To pay rent and pay for this and that, but I would do enough sessions, enough yoga classes to make those ends meet, and then I just wouldn't think about it. It was a great time. I'm grateful for that time of just doing heaps of yoga. I'd either be practicing yoga, teaching yoga, and just making enough money to live well. And then I wouldn't think about it much. But then when I had kids, that changed the whole game. Got to be much more skillful than I was, and it took a little while. It took the first year. It was tough.
What were the emotions that were coming up for you that were driving the change?
I mean, I was grateful to be a dad, and it was a paradox of it being blissful and beautiful. At the same time, I was feeling that primal push of like, you're a father now. Like you gotta step up. You can't just float fully now. You got to have your feet on the earth. Because I was very floaty before that. Probably a little bit too much. It wasn't functional in being a father. Would have been a shit father if I kept going that way. Would have been like selfish, you know. I got to go do my yoga. Like I'm not changing that nappy. I got my yoga to do.
Got to stay centered.
It possibly would have been very selfish. So it was a process of like, it wasn't too emotional. I was just feeling that that kind of resistance that comes with that next level of growth and development, in which maybe a little bit of overwhelm of like, whew, okay, you got a little one to be responsible for now. It's not just about you now and your students and all that and your work. And it's like, you got to look after this little one. So it just felt like a great opportunity and like time to step up, time to ground your feet on the earth. And then I'm grateful that I'd been doing it all enough and had a good enough reputation that the work was flowing, and yeah, there was a nice, and continues to be a nice just flow of giving and receiving, and but it took a little bit of time of shifting from just me to now you're a householder, a dad and a husband, and yeah, there weren't a lot. There's more now, but 10 years ago there wasn't, in my perception, a lot of role models for people that were going deep into spirit and being a family man. Ram Dass didn't do it that way, but then, like, because when I would come to him for advice, it's like, I don't know, I didn't do it that way.
Oh wow!
Yeah. But like he married Joe and I, and he said, this isn't how I did it, but you two, you're on a tandem path to God. You're doing it together, and you're doing it in family. So we look at like family as like part of the path, part of the practice. So I don't really need to get away from the family to get my fix of spirituality. Like, it's all now integrated.
Oh, okay.
But that took a little while. It took a couple years of resistance and working with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're way more productive now than you were without kids?
No.
No, okay, yeah.
No.
I mean, in a way,
Yeah.
but in a way, it's
Yeah.
just different.
Okay,
It's
fair
just
enough.
different.
Do you feel
My
like
priorities are different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time is precious. It's not so much about how much can I produce in a day or a week. It's like precious moments of getting shit done and being productive, but also like just time playing with the kids, time reading them a book. Whereas before it was like the first couple years, it took a little while to shift around those priorities, and I'd be out teaching every night rather than tucking them into bed and reading a book, you know? Whereas it took a little while to dial in the timing of like, okay, get a whole lot of sessions in and podcasts and do what you need to do in the morning or the afternoon, and then the other half of the day, like, do your practices, be with your kids, drop them off at school. Like, it's a balancing act.
Yeah. Do you feel that when you had your kids, your definition of love changed?
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe it?
Well, so there's the love that Ram Dass embodied that is just like cosmic, spiritual love beyond form, like, which I had sensitized to and continued to really enjoy. But that love for my children, it's that and something else. It's that deep spiritual love and this like primal love, this attached love, like, because the non-dual like love of the heart, that, oops, sorry, I'm tapping that mic, that has no attachment. That's just like the love of the universe. It's totally free.
Yeah.
But the love of my child, that's that universal love and this attached love, this like, I would do anything for you, and like I'd be like the contemplation of them dying like is just bone rattling. It's different.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
Different and the same. It's indescribable, and it's just a different kind of love. At the same time, it includes that love I had felt prior, and I'm grateful for being brought up with a lot of love. With my parents. They're incredibly loving, and I'm grateful I got siblings. Like a lot of love. I was brought up with a lot of love, and but that love for our own child, that's a whole other thing for me.
Yeah, I think there was a saying that when you have your first child with your wife, you have to remember that you loved your wife first.
Totally.
Yeah, because it's such a profound feeling of having your first child that it just kind of like encapsulates everything.
Yeah, no
else.
doubt. Now, that's important, man. That's so important. I mean, so many relationships and marriages fall apart, I think, because we forget that.
Yeah.
And then the stresses of life and the responsibilities of kids, and then it's so easy to forget that love for your beloved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big one.
That's a good quote, man.
Yeah.
When you talk about the heart, and a lot of your show, or it's not shows, I don't know what it's called, but workshops or events you do are based on the heart. What exactly is the heart when you really break it down, and what can it do once we really begin to tap into it?
Yeah. So, I mean, we can begin by bringing attention there. So in Buddhism, they talk about the heart mind. They're not so obsessed with the thinking mind. They include it, but they talk a lot about the heart mind and this vibe and intelligence of this part of our body, the literal center of our chest. We can learn to locate it. And so with our breathing, most of us totally close the heart because we haven't learnt to reopen them. And we've gone through school, and we've gone through work, and we've gone through just society, building up trauma and building up tension and just more and more stuff of the mind. And we can think of it as this like armor around the heart. And we're trying to locate it, but it's buried under all this shit and all this armor. So for most of us, it's this process of breaking through that armor and remembering the heart, literally locating it with our attention. The heart mind, or in yoga, it's in Sanskrit, it's called the Hridayam, the spiritual heart. And then it's a process of waking it up, waking it up. Who knows?
Why do we cover it in armor for? I understand that sort of concept of protecting ourselves, protecting our heart, when really it's...
life, the ego, the mind. I mean, to say it's complicated. Say we've been brought up in an abusive household and we've just seen abuse. That's one reason. Yeah, so a lot of people from birth, from way back, they've been just developing these coping mechanisms to stay safe. Or the illusion of staying safe. And that's what it is. It's this armoring of the ego because dad hurt me, or mum hurt me, or everyone's hurt me. So for many of us, it's environmental and from way back. And then if we haven't had the support and the experiences or the practices to deal with that trauma, for most of us, it's then just more and more trauma through childhood, through teenagehood, and then if we don't have anything to shock us out of that. So for me, it was that drug overdose that felt like the equivalent of like shock therapy, like wake up. So why do we do it? I mean, it's so complex, but like you brought up the thing of like all the wars and all the life, that if we are looking at all that, it's scary. It's scary. And if we can't look at it all the horror in the world and not regulate it, most of us, we like deaden the heart, and we close it and we armor it, and we're just,
You just don't want to feel.
we don't want to feel. And from that standpoint, life's really threatening and really scary, and then we've got these coping mechanisms of alcohol and drugs to finally get some kind of release. And
It's quite a paradox, because the way I look at it is all the trouble in the world and the wars and all that kind of stuff that sort of makes us paranoid or freak out to put more armor on. Our heart could fix that, where we wouldn't feel that way with it open.
That's right.
But it's sort of, it's what we need the most, but we keep deadening it.
Yeah.
It's
The
very
ego
hard
gets
to
scared,
understand how
doesn't
the
it?
mind
Yeah.
interprets life. It's just,
Right.
yeah.
Well, it's understandable. We are these primates. It's quite interesting how quick we have evolved into where we are now. So we're these primal creatures where we need that fight or flight type mechanism in our nervous system to react.
Yeah.
But now, if that fight, flight, freeze isn't regulated, it just builds and builds and builds and builds. So yeah, you're totally right. If we can get that taste of the spiritual heart, we then have the insight and the realization that we don't need all this armor.
Yeah.
And then we can relax and let it go. But if we haven't had that realization, we think we need that armor. Like it's just protecting our ego and our mind, and just everyone's scary, you know? And yeah, we gotta taste it for ourselves, you know? Yeah.
You mentioned the word tantra. How would you define tantra? Because there's a lot of confusion around
Right.
what it actually means.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you define it?
For me, similar to yoga, like yoga has countless definitions, countless. Tantra, similar, endless definitions. But to sum it up, it is being in our senses at the same time beyond them, being integrated, being in the world but not of the world. It's all about embodiment and integration of being able to access spirit beyond form, at the same time all of our bodily primal functions are integrated as well.
So being fully embodied in the physical vessel and connected to spirit at the same time.
Yeah.
Because usually I find it's one or the other.
Yeah, totally. Without a
That's
doubt.
awesome.
Yeah.
Anyone in tantra you'd recommend to go and see or work with?
Yeah. So for me, I've had more like classical tantra teachers, so Sally Kempton, Tara Judell.
Are they in Perth? Are they like
They're not, no.
Okay.
So I met Tara in Bali actually. She's a nomad. She travels around the world. You can look her up. Tara Judell, Embodied Flow. Sally Kempton, same thing. I met her in California. She's based there. But she's got a lot of online content. If you're yearning for a bit more like classical tantra, Sally Kempton's a great teacher for that.
Yeah.
She's awesome. David Data has been a teacher many people in the scene have seeked out. He's been a real leader in tantra in the modern day, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It seems to have lit a fire of what we see a lot of with the more, because he does bring a lot of the sexuality into it, which is great. We need that growth and development in being spiritual beings, but also being sexual beings, and really being.
'Cause usually they're held opposite. You've got things that sort of like.
That's right.
That's lust or debauchery, or that's you got to. What do you call that? No fap, hold your seat, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So he's great in that.
Balancing that.
Yeah, David Data. A lot of people, for whatever reason, I don't know why, have been poo-pooing his teachings. Again, I don't know why. Feel free to enlighten me. But I think he's great. He's amazing. Sally Kempton, real classical teacher, like the wisdom of Tantra. Tara Judell, Same.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a podcast yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did that start, and how did that come about?
I got into that a few years ago now. I don't know. I just felt like it.
Yeah.
I was listening to some great podcasts and just felt like it. Just felt like having conversations like this and getting real with people and connecting. And
Beautiful.
it was just a vision and a feeling. And
Well, when you first started, you're talking to a lot of amazing people living purpose-driven lives. Did you find it hard to, what do you take on board and what don't you take on board? Because I found I speaking to so many people, so many different fields, I'm like, whoa.
Right.
I love to take things on.
Yeah.
When it's so much information, you can't take it on.
Totally.
Yeah. Do you find a similar experience with that, or do you sort of just have a bit of more withdrawn
No, I mean,
conversation?
I haven't found it too tricky, mainly because the guests I've had on have been either teachers or peers or friends, and it's just an organic conversation and we're just vibing. Mainly. But when I do bump up against views that I like to work with it as a practice of compassionate listening and just discernment of seeing when that that reactivity comes up of like, oh, this person has a different view to me, and like regulating it in the moment of just compassionate listening, and then voicing my opinion and having a great conversation. We need that shit.
True.
It's good.
100%.
And we don't need to absorb it all. If we're seeing the bullshit in it,
Yeah.
let it go, you know,
Yeah,
and hear
fair
them
enough.
out. And
How do you go about healthy confrontation where something goes up against your views, but you don't want to obviously shut it down, but speak about it healthily?
Yeah.
Or when things sort of cross your boundaries, how do you approach that?
Oh, it depends on the day, to be
Oh,
honest.
really?
Yeah, it does. Like
On a bad day?
on a bad day, I feel it, and I feel the righteousness and I feel all that. But on a good day, it's like again, just that compassionate listening. Ken Wilber, another great teacher of mine, has this practice of, has this perception of everyone is right. Everyone in what they're saying and their view of the world or their view of a situation has a nugget of truth. They might not be completely right or ultimately right, but there's some kind of relative truth there.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
There's certain things that have happened like in the last few years where people sort of split down the middle, you know?
Yeah.
And it's very hard to reach that common ground when it's sort of so black and white
Yeah.
in a sense. But how do you go about speaking your truth
Right.
in times where you're feeling that charge or the people pleasing coming up and say, whoa, I'm feeling nervous right now.
Mhm.
And sometimes we just shy away and don't say it, but you need to really own it.
Yeah.
Have you had that
totally.
experience pop up in your...
Oh, yeah.
And-
Again, it, I think in certain situations that charge can be of benefit and like certain situations, but a lot it doesn't serve. And the best thing we can do is work on ourselves, and we can do that in the moment. If we're feeling that charge, that so that's where our practices can help us keep that kind of clarity to discern how to respond, rather than if there's no consciousness flowing and we're just on fight, flight, freeze, reactivity, we've got no choice. We're just going to react, or we're going to freeze and run away. Or it's going to be something like that. So that's why we need our practices, to get consciousness flowing. Then we'll have a choice. Otherwise, we pretty much don't have a choice. It's just something that's triggered us, and we're either gonna, we're just gonna react in how we can react.
Another question for you, which I'm very curious to ask you. If you had like a network or a platform, you could speak to 1 billion people or maybe the whole world within 5 minutes, had like one message to send, what would you actually send out if you were on everyone's TV screens? Or would you just opt out, or would you take the opportunity and say one message?
Yeah, I'd send message if the invitation's there, and Yeah, sure.
Well, what do you think you'd say in that? If you had that one little moment to say that one message.
One little moment. Again, I got to think about it a bit if it's that one message and there's that many people.
True.
But it'd be something along the lines of there's just so much hate in the world and it's not helping. So much divisiveness, so much hate. And when we actually connect and look people in the eye and actually have a conversation, we're all more similar than we think. And even someone we might hate in terms of the projection of them and maybe the social media divide. And when we actually slow down and connect, it's pretty hard to hate someone. When you truly look them in the eyes and feel their humanity in their heart. We need more of that. So I would talk about that and where we were before. Of be the change you want to see in the world. You know, like be accountable, be honest, be kind. Like these principles that can easily get forgotten. But to do that in a way that isn't righteous and isn't dogmatic and just ranting down the throats of people, because that doesn't land. Not for many anyway. So it'd be tricky, you know, in that one moment. I would think of the vibe Ram Dass embodied of like, wasn't forcing wisdom down people's throats. I'd work on just that loving, compassionate, kind vibe, which is tricky through a camera, but it's possible. And then invite that opening of the heart.
Beautiful, man.
I don't know exactly what I'd say.
No, it's pretty on the spot there.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
But did you have long hair before? I remember you with long hair.
Okay. Yeah.
How long was it?
Oh, not too long. I've had phases of, I let it grow out. Maybe it got to about here.
Okay, yeah.
And then gradually a bit shorter, then buzzed it off.
Was it a hard thing to cut off?
It actually wasn't. I felt really ready just to... My daughters actually just did it and pulled out the buzzer and went for it. Yeah, it was nice actually. It was quite liberating. Yeah. And then a bit confronting when I looked in the mirror, but mainly liberating.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That would have been a fun day.
It was great.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds like a fun day. I bet they would have loved that.
Yeah, it was fun. Actually, no, they were like, we preferred you better with longer hair.
Oh, God.
Bit of brutal child honesty. You know?
Oh, yeah. They're brutally honest all the time.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, though.
That is helpful, actually.
Yeah, it's great. But just all love, you know?
Yeah. Because they're coming from a true, authentic, and genuine place.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still have no fear of, oh, what is he going to think about this?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Totally.
Yeah. I wonder if the world would be different if we all functioned in the child state in terms of like authenticity and genuinity.
I thought about this and I heard a good quote where it's like the difference between speaking truth and speaking truth in love. You can be very blunt with truth, but if you're speaking truth in love, it's sort of like, how can you soften that truth when it could just, break somebody, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, one last question for you. What was your experience like with mescaline? Or mescaline, or however you
mescaline. Yeah, the cactus. Incredible. Yeah, incredible. So my journey with it, pre-having kids, I was doing a lot of ayahuasca, any chance I could.
How much is a lot? Like once a year?
Every couple of weeks.
Oh wow! How did you get it so readily available? Or were you traveling?
It's happening.
Okay.
Yeah, it's around. Head up into the hills and.
You weren't really in South America, or you were in Australia?
No, I mean I've done it a few times in the Americas and in Hawaii. So that was very good for me, and was really. In my experience of it, like the energy of it, and many people regard the ayahuasca as like the grandmother. And it felt like that to me, this real grandmother wisdom and this real Shakti, feminine vitality. And then just intuitively once becoming a husband and
Excuse me, sorry, man.
and a dad, started doing more cactus, more mescaline.
Okay.
And that's often referred to as the grandfather. And I found the experience of it much more grounding and strengthening. And I started doing that, in the first few years of becoming a dad. And I do actually feel it helped me become a more grounded and thriving dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I find it to be a more like grounded clarity.
Beautiful.
Yet the ayahuasca more of a dynamic, visionary, blissful, heart-opening kind of explosive experience. So that's what I've found it to be.
Beautiful. Because I remember a couple of years ago, I woke up in the morning and I had like a little vision, and it was like, do masculine. Or I'm like, whoa, that's interesting. That's like very loud and pronounced. I still haven't done it, but I've been seeing cactuses pop up and it's coming in my field at the moment.
Right.
Is there a difference between peyote, San Pedro, and mescaline?
They're
Or they all the
they've
same?
all got the mescaline compound in it.
Okay.
In them, but they're just different types of cactus. So the peyote is the kind of they're really fragile in certain environments, and they take a lot longer to grow.
Okay.
So that's the little button
Nice.
that very gradually gets bigger. They look beautiful.
Which was the one that you did that you said you had a lot of benefit from?
I've done both,
Okay.
but I've done more of the San Pedro.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to me?
Well, San Pedro is more readily available.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what was had the best impact on you or the best experience?
They've all
Oh,
of them.
really?
I can't say which. Every journey has been just a little bit different, and every journey of such benefit.
I gotta try both then.
Yeah. The way it has felt within my experience because of the yoga practice, and then going into the plant medicine journey with the yoga practices. Each journey, especially when it's a good solid dose, like it's a full psychedelic journey, like multiple hours, has felt like an extended retreat. So I've done many yoga retreats, some 2 weeks, some a month, some 3 months. It's felt like multiple weeks retreat in that one sitting.
Oh, wow.
Of working through stuff and blissful moments and insight, and then working through some more stuff and grounding. It's like this deep inner work.
Sounds really needed in today's society where
Yeah.
people don't have 3 months to go away.
That's right.
Yeah.
It can, again, with the right setting, and I think it does help if we've got some practices, some tools in our tool belt, so to speak, to work with the experience and then integrate it.
Yeah.
Because one thing, and I've seen a lot of it, of having this big, explosive experience, but then not integrating it, and then we're just kind of waiting for the next trip. So for me, that's really important. Good setting, skillfully done, and then integrating.
Integration.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Would you say the integration element is just as important as the actual trip?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I've seen dear friends, and I've seen people in the community, which just from observing, it actually hasn't looked like the plant medicine is helping them.
Yeah.
Because of that lack of integration, and because it's so unraveling and it's so big. I've seen quite a few people left like unraveled and not put back together to function in the world. And then even to the point where these certain dark perceptions of the world have gotten even darker.
Yeah.
Kind of like ostracized themselves from the world. So they're not to be fucked with. Like, I used to think they were for everyone. Like, if the whole world just took a whole dose of
LSD.
mushrooms, LSD or something, it would be a better world, which it could be. But some people, I don't think it's for them.
Yeah.
Like, So I'm all for like a little bit of like discernment leading up to it, of like, gotta kind of have some things in place. Maybe it's yoga, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's therapy, maybe it's something to just like, I don't think it's the full holy grail. It can be, but it can really screw with people as well.
You know the right people around you as well, like your friends and partners and things like that would be crucial in those moments of integration, because you don't want to be dropped back into the matrix, so to speak, with an unsupportive household.
That's right.
It can be very scary to have no one to share what you're experiencing with.
Totally.
Yeah.
Integration is huge.
It's powerful stuff. Yeah, I think that's always one of the challenges is integration, especially like when you have such a powerful experience with like ayahuasca and mushrooms. You have all these new insights, and then trying to come back into going back to work the next day. How do you like put all of that together in like a very in a way that's digestible and you can live your everyday life?
It's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
I've had this fear around LSD for some reason. I've never really had it. I had a pill once that was laced with some kind of synthetic psychedelic, which really rocked me, but it did awaken me to a level, but it was not the best way, you know. But have you tried LSD? And what are your thoughts on it as a synthetic, and how was Ram Dass using it and integrating it into society?
Right. So Ram Dass's journey with LSD, so he was a Harvard professor in psychology, and this was before the war on drugs, when LSD was quite new, and it was like the wonder drug, and it wasn't outlawed yet. So they were doing legitimate scientific studies with it.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
oh, wow.
And which is coming back into full circle. It's happening now as well, and I've gotten beyond that few decades of the war on drugs. But so he was doing the scientific studies. Him and Timothy Leary had a psychedelic experience with it, and from their experience, the way they put it is they learnt more from that one trip than they did in all of their PhDs and all of their studies. They learnt more in that one experience. So they became obsessed with it and took it to like the edge of what I think is possible of taking LSD.
Quick insert there.
Yeah.
Do they have that experience only because they were educated and had PhDs and that sort of thing? Because were they just going through their own mind in a sense, or was it the drug itself?
Yeah, I mean, good question. A bit of both, I think, but I think we've all got our kind of canvas of what's already being laid out in our mind and our perspectives and all of that. But they took it to a whole nother level. They were doing LSD a lot. So I haven't done it that much. I've done it a few times, and each LSD experience has been beautiful, incredibly beneficial. I'm not drawn to it like I have been with the plant medicines. I think mainly because it is synthetic, and a little bit of fear of like the quality control. There's a lot of shit out there.
You can't really go to the pharmacy and get a
That's right.
trust some guy.
Yeah, that's right. So, but I've done it a few times. It's been great. Loved the feeling. Had beautiful visionary experiences and bliss, and all for it if it's good quality and a good set and setting.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Is there a question you wish people would ask you more often?
Well, on that regard.
On any regard, I suppose.
No, your questions have been great, both of you. These have been awesome questions, and I'm loving this. You can ask me these questions every day, people. A question. I mean, that feels huge. The integration piece. Like, how can I bring the yoga into my household? How can I bring it into my workplace? How can I be of service in the world? Those questions, I think, are huge for people. How can I get more in touch with my purpose? And these aren't quick fixes. These are things we got to really chew on. And and dive deep into regularly.
Yeah.
So they're not quick answers. It's like, no, let's talk about this shit for a while, and let's really come up with some ways you don't just read about it conceptually, but actually put it into motion.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah. I have one more. What advice would you give to a young person who's trying to learn a bit more about spirituality? Let's say it's like their first week, they're feeling some sort of pull towards this, but they also have to fight like their surroundings. So let's say your family, your friends. So you'd be the only person who's venturing into a totally new realm. What type of advice would you give someone who's going through that journey?
Yeah, again, there's so much, and a lot of the teachings I'm into now, when I'm vibing off it and recommend it to some people that are earlier on in the path, it just doesn't land, it doesn't digest. So I got to think about what helped me in the early days was Dr. Wayne Dyer was really helpful in the early days.
He's a boss,
He the way he would talk about these deep teachings really landed with me, and still do, but it was very helpful in the early days. Tony Robbins, even though he can fixate a lot more the motivational piece and the money piece, I found it helpful to just kind of get motivation flowing, and then if you listen deeply enough, he ends up going into deeper spiritual teachings eventually. So looking back to my earlier days, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, and a great teacher, Stuart Wild. Even though it can be way out there, very esoteric and really out there, I vibed with it in the early days. But it's going to be different for everyone depending on their conditioning up to that point, their experiences. Some people vibe straight into Be Here Now with Ram Dass and the deep teachings. But for many, there's just no reference point. It doesn't digest. It's too out there, too deep. Doesn't make sense. So possibly starting with Wayne Dyer, and maybe just some simple breathing exercises. Because once we can, like I said before, just breathe well, it quiets the mind, and we're much more able to absorb the wisdom. And it not be so us not be so distracted. So potentially those teachers, and finding a breathing technique. And it could be as simple as like box breaths. Just 4 seconds in, hold it for 4 seconds, 4 seconds out, hold it out for 4 seconds. You do that enough times, you're going to feel pretty darn good and receptive and ready to dive into some teachings.
Oh, wow. That's good advice.
Yeah.
I wish I knew more about breathing.
That's 90 minutes, bro. We're gonna call it, man.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
This has been great.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time, man.
Likewise. This has been lovely.
Thank you so much.
Guys.
It was
Welcome.
beautiful.